What is a red flag from an employer that people might not immediately recognize as a red flag? A couple old senior partners, lots of young employees and nothing in between. That means there's no opportunity to move up, they can't get people to stay, and can't get lateral transfers. They work young folks for as long as they can, and the young folks leave once they figure out the company sucks. Everybody is very young in a very old company. Had an interview somewhere they offered 20 to 23 starting. Being new in this field, when they asked how much I was expecting to be paid, I said, well, you guys are offering 20 to 23 starting, and being new in the field I think 20 would be good. Their response was, oh. Well, that's kind of a red flag for us. Usually when someone starts with us they'll say, I'll take $17 until I can prove to you that I'm worth the $20, so you'll see why we're hesitant. My response, then why would you offer $20 at your low end? I didn't get a call back. They claim that overtime isn't mandatory and workers stay longer by choice. The job title says they're looking to hire rock stars. When you don't get a review until you ask for a raise. Then, all of a sudden, your work is being questioned and you're being berated. When they refuse to tell you what your starting salary would be, or when they just avoid the question altogether. Like I didn't apply to the job to be a part of some family work culture. I came here to get a job and be paid. Asking if you are somebody who's willing to put in the time to make sure deadlines are met, work is done, or if you're the type of person who leaves when the workday is finished. This is generally corporate speak for, we will be forcing you to work unpaid overtime. Asking if I planned to have children in the interview, I was 19. There's a misery wall when walking into work. When you pass a certain point in the building the feeling changes significantly. If you know, you know. Any job ad that doesn't mention the name of the company should raise suspicions. Doubly so if it's anything to do with sales. Got done by that trick once. Turned up to the interview and the job was going door to door selling vacuums for Kirby Vacuums. Trying to rush a decision out of you once the offer is made. I once interviewed with a company where I would have been relocating across the country to work for them. There were 3 rounds of interviews and they left me completely in the dark for weeks on end between each round before inviting me to the next round within just a few days of when the interview would take place. After the final interview it was over a month of silence from them until they made an offer but told me I had less than 24 hours to let them know my decision. I would have been moving 2,000 miles away from home to a place I had never been or even seen before. Interviews were completely virtual. They wanted me to start 6 days after the offer had been made. When I asked if there was any flexibility for me to have more time to think it over or have more time to move out there, they said no. They needed the decision the next day, and if I accepted I would be starting in less than a week. I declined the offer. When they say, or try to make you sign, anything pertaining to not discussing your wages with other employees, that shit is illegal and it screams that people aren't being fairly compensated for their work. I've literally up and walked the fuck out of jobs for this. The sink or swim technique. It was my first day as a cashier. I got a couple of hours of training, then I was by myself and we were dead. All of a sudden this rush came in and I was asking for help. The manager goes, sink or swim, we're busy back here, figure it out. Lol, I did, but let me tell you, customers were not happy because I still didn't know how to properly enter in orders, especially modifications. I went on an interview. They had me wait in the lobby. In the 5 minutes I was sitting there, 3 employees walked past me. The first just looked at me and laughed. The second said, leave. Leave while you can. The third made the sign of the cross at me. Later, during the interview, the hiring manager showed me the Zen room, which was a quiet room you got to go to for 10 minutes when you got too stressed out. I was offered the job. I declined. Edit 1. They walked by separately at different times too. You had to ask permission to use the Zen room. Competitive pay, but they won't tell you what the pay actually is in the posting or even the interview. I interviewed once at a very huge organization that had a site in the town I was living in, and these guys were so proud of the new top-of-the-line facilities. When they took me on a tour they pointed out the lovely Zen garden area that was made for employees to go, unwind and clear their heads. The problem with it was this area was positioned directly across from all the higher-ups' offices. Yeah, no. I always ask the question, why is this role open? Is it a new role, or am I replacing someone? Why did that person leave? This really helps you seeing their reaction, and if they look nervous it's because the person who left did it because they were not happy. I also like asking how senior my team members are. If there's no one there more than 2 years, I would also be concerned. Final question. As I work in sales, I always ask, what's the KPIs and how many are actually hitting their quarterly and annual target? This also reveals if they set their targets too high, and you can expect to enter a grim working culture where you're never good enough, and can always do better. Last one. I like asking about how they are working to establish a team culture as well, since this will tell you a lot if people at work are friends, or just there to do their job. If the job description has a nondescriptively massive salary range, $25,000 to $100,000. They're always hiring.